Hello everyone. So today we are going to be talking about section 7.5 in the textbook. But before we do that, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to go over what we went over yesterday, which is graphing a parabola of the form y is equal to x minus h quantity squared plus k. And I'm going to emphasize the transformation. So hopefully today I'll clear up some confusion that might have occurred yesterday. Hopefully I can just make things a little more clear. So the first thing is all parabolas have the same shape, but it can be different sizes, so it can be stretched or compressed. That's what A controls. And then actually, when I say graphing parabola in the form of that, it should actually be A times x minus h quantity squared. So it can be either stretched or compressed. It can be different orientation, so it could be opening upward or like up like a cup or down like a frown, or it can be translated on a different part of the graph. So so just a quadratic formula. So anything with a square that's where the highest degree is a 2, it's going to be quadratic, and it's going to have a graph of a parabola, but that parabola can change. So another way to graph, instead of just plugging in values, another way is to use the parent function, which I mentioned yesterday. So, but we can take that parent function and we can use it to transform it by using translation, reflection, and or stretching or compressing. So what I'm going to be talking about is we're just going to be focusing on the translation. We're not going to be focusing on reflection or stretching, right? So for horizontal translations, it's going to affect your x values, because as you can see, horizontal is going across, and across is your x. And then for vertical translations, it affects your y's, because vertical is your y-axis. So about the horizontal translations, like what I said yesterday, when you have x minus h quantity squared, that's what graphing the parabola. That's the standard, that's just the standard way of writing it. So in that case, when there is a minus right there, your h is greater than 0. And then when you have x plus h, this is, I'll put the square, this is x minus h. Okay, if we want to make it look like this form, so then what is h? So it's negative h, so we know this is less than 0. So if it's less than 0, we're going to move the graph left h units, and then if it's positive, so if it looks like x minus h, then we're going to shift the graph to the right h units. For vertical translations, it's more intuitive in my opinion, because if you see a plus c or a k, I don't know. So technically this should be c. Either that or you can make that k. It doesn't matter, right? But if you add c, that means you're going to go up the graph c. But when you see minus c, it's going to go down c. Okay, the only one that we really have to worry about is the horizontal, and you just have to remember that x minus h is just how it's normally written. That's just the general, right, the arbitrary form. So I have it in other words. So if you just know how to find h and k, and then follow these, right? So then I also added, so I didn't do this yesterday, but I added steps today. So hopefully it'll be a little more clear on what I'm doing, right? So to do these steps, to implement these steps, I'm going to use the following example. Oops, change that. So the example we are given is y is equal to x plus 2 quantity squared plus 4, all right? So the very first step, so step 1, we want to identify what h and k are. Remember, h is the number in the parentheses, so let's write the general form up here. Okay, so h, so before I start with steps, let's write it in this way. So y, this is also the same as saying y is equal to x minus a negative 2 quantity squared plus 4. So now that it looks like this equation above, we can now identify H1, or we can now identify H and K. So H, in this case, is negative 2, and K is positive 4, right? And then now, the step 2, so I'm going to start with the parent function coordinates. Okay, so step 2, you can just write them down. So the parent, we have x, and then f of x. So if we pick the general, the basic 5 units that we normally pick, then we're going to use this. Okay, so these are the coordinates of our parent function, y is equal to x squared. This is always going to be true because it's always y equals x squared, and then no matter how many times you put negative 2 into x squared, it's always going to spit out 4. Right? So, and if you just have it memorized, that's fine. Right? It'll make your life a lot easier. So now steps 3 and 4, I'm going to combine. So step 3 and step 4. Go down a little bit, or actually, I don't really want to go down, so how about I erase that or scribble it out, and then let's do step 3 and step 4 to the side right here. So step 3, so we want to find x, and we want to find f of x, right? So step 3, I'm going to do in purple, right? Maybe change the width, okay? So step 3, I said I want to add h to each x value, because h affects your x values. So therefore, I'm just going to add h to our x value. So remember, h is negative 2. So what is negative? So I'm going to do negative 2 minus 2. Right? And then I'm going to have negative, let me rewrite this. Maybe make it a little more clear. So this is going to be negative 2 plus negative 2. This is negative 1 plus negative 2. 0 plus negative 2. 1 plus negative 2. And then 2 plus negative 2. So this whole column is just my h, and then the terms on the left are all my x values. Right? And then f of x, I'll just do it in orange. Make sure I got this correct width. And so now for step 4, I'm going to add k to each y value. So I'll keep it the same. So my left column will be my y values, and then I'll add my k's. So plus 4, and then this is 1 plus 4. This is 0 plus 4, 1 plus 4, 4 plus 4. Right? So when I simplify this, when I add these numbers together, negative 2 plus negative 2, that is negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0. Right? And then over here, it's going to be 8, 5, 4, 5, 8. Oops. Oh, man, that was way off. You should, when you write the values, it should align with your x values. So let me try that one more time. Right? So now, this is step 3 and 4 kind of went into 2 tables. But one thing I want to say is for step 3 and 4, this is just me showing you. So this first one is just me showing you what I'm doing. So what are the steps? But if you want, you can actually go straight from here to here. Right? So you can just skip that step. But I just want to show you guys where it's coming from. Right? So now, step 5 is we're going to plot the newly found points. So if we go to step 5 right here, so I'm going to use these points. So I'm going to go negative 4, positive 8, and then this is negative 3, 5, negative 2, 4, 1 negative, or negative 1, 5, and then 0, 8. and then just kind of roughly graph it, right? And that is how you graph using transformations. I hope that made it a little more clear. If you are still not convinced that this works, let's check. Okay, so how are we going to check? So since I'm running out of space, I'm just going to change my table. I'm going to go the long ways instead. So first things first is we want to find the vertex, right? And what is the vertex? So the vertex is HK. Okay, we already found H and K. So our vertex is -2, 4. Okay, and then how do we find the other 4 points we have to plot? We have to pick 2 numbers that are smaller than -2 and 2 numbers that are bigger than -2. So I'm going to do the smaller first, right? You can do the bigger, doesn't matter, right? And as you can see, like even right here, you'll notice that these are the same x values we have all over to the right here. And now for the y, how do we find the y? When you plug an x into your function, how do you solve for y? You just solve it. You just evaluate it with that value. So what is y when x is equal to -4? So we look up here, so we're going to plug in -4 to this graph. Oh my goodness. Okay, that's fine. Let me just see. All right, so we're going to plug it into there. So it's going to be -4 plus 2 quantity squared. That's 4. 4 plus 8. 4 is 8. Over here. All right, -3. That's going to be -1 squared. That's 1. 1 plus 4 is 5. Again, -1 plus 2. That's 1. 1 squared is 1. 1 plus 4 is 5. And then lastly, when you plug in 0 for x, you get 2 squared, which is 4. 4 plus 4 is 8. Okay, so as you can see that this transformation, that this is the correct points for this graph, and then this, as long as I know how to locate points and I can count, then this should be right. All right. So, and this is, that's how you graph with transformations. And then if you're unsure with yourself, the best way to make yourself more confident is to constantly check your work, right? And then before you know it, you'll just be so confident that you don't think you'll have to check it. But you still always should learn from my mistakes, right? Because, I make mistakes all the time. So, all right, guys. The next video, I will start talking about section 7.5.